The Shawshank Redemption. He wasn't sure what his dad was trying to accomplish with this prison movie combo. Everything was so drab and gray, including his mood. But his parents had introduced a theme night where the blockbusters were placed on the back burner. The response thus far seemed lukewarm at best. The moment he reached the bumper and noticed who the clunker belonged to, he got that pins and needles feeling in his toes again. Fucking Todd Parker. One of the biggest assholes from the previous year's graduating class. Guess he was home from college for summer break. The walkie-talkie on his hip crackled with a message from inside the concession area, but he barely noticed as he glanced around for Todd's teammates. The most pretentious of the athletes always seemed to hang in packs, but tonight Todd looked to be alone with a date. His skin prickled as his gaze darted to the picnic tables up front where kids like to hang out during the summer. Some of Todd's teammates were definitely there, including one he hadn't seen since he went away to some private fancy college in the fall. A bubble of surprise arose inside him, along with a spike of happiness, as it always did when he saw Josh Daly. Josh had played baseball with those guys, and a couple of them had even gotten full-ride scholarships. Josh's dad was assistant baseball coach at the high school, and he sounded pretty hardcore according to the stories he'd heard over the years, mostly from his best friend Charlie, who definitely thrived on town gossip. But their families only lived a block apart, and there were many days when he'd bike down Josh's street and see him playing an intense game of catch in the yard with his dad, the tension between them evident in the set of Josh's shoulders. No wonder he wanted to get out of town. When their eyes locked across the lot, Josh raised his hand in a wave, making the moths in Brennan's stomach buzz so fiercely it was as if they'd been hibernating for months on end. Brennan's Elm Grove drive-in movie theater t-shirt rode up his abdomen, but his fingers were too busy balancing the large tub of popcorn to yank it down as the extra buttered pieces spilled onto the gravel. Damn, why does this guy fluster me so much? Their lives had sometimes intersected over the years in organized sports or at the local arts center, so he figured he just looked up to Josh. He was talented, cool, and funny. In one summer, they even did a camp together that Brennan still thought about to this day. That dance on stage. And then that other thing that made his whole body tremble so much that he declared it off limits to think about. Josh was a year older, and part of a group of athletes that liked to parade around the school like they owned the place, though he remained on the periphery. And maybe even felt obligated since his dad was a member of the coaching staff. But he was still always friendly in the halls whenever he saw Brennan, which made his stomach feel all strange until at least the next period. The Chevy's window unrolled, breaking him out of his thoughts. Todd Parker reached across the girl sitting on the passenger side and practically ripped the popcorn tub out of Brennan's hand. "How about our drinks? We ordered large gulps." Todd curled his lip as he looked him up and down, and Brennan could see the insult hanging off his lips just like it always did in the school hallway. Faggot. The ground sloped like the carnival tilt-a-whirl, and his stomach turned and jerked. Todd fucking Parker didn't know. He couldn't know. He was only being an asshole. Todd called everyone that fucking word. It was the asshole's favorite blanket insult, and Brennan had wanted to throat punch him so many times in the halls. Too bad his parents didn't have a policy about serving dickheads. Get a grip, Brennan. He was being ridiculous. It wasn't as if anyone would notice what he'd finally admitted to himself, how it took him all of high school and beyond graduation to finally come to terms with some hard truths. How when he looked through the notebooks he doodled in on a regular basis, he saw himself so plainly it practically knocked the wind out of him. But his questionable sexuality wasn't pasted on his forehead for everyone to see, for Christ's sake. Thank fuck for that. He was already towing the line with his foster parents, scared of not doing his fair share now that he'd come of age. Adoptive parents, he reminded himself. They had finally made it official during sophomore year, but he still had all the same fears about not making any wrong moves that would get him kicked out and into a group home. Or worse, placed with a family that treated him like shit, or like he was disposable. He'd had enough of those experiences to last him a lifetime. His parents made it clear that they were cool with him taking classes.